So here we are with another Batman movie. Wow, makes you wonder how many movies they're gonna make about Batman. Honestly, I wouldn't care less because I don't know if I told you on my previous videos that Batman is still my favorite DC Comics hero. I always struggle to not call him superhero because he doesn't have superpowers, but you get the idea. The bottom line is that I love Batman. Oh, and before I keep talking about today's movie, I do. Uh, if you're kind of wondering why the image quality of this video looks a little bit different than the usual, here's the thing. I'm making a little bit of an experiment on this one by, instead of recording my videos on my usual camera, in which here I'll show you for the first time, for the first time that I record my camera with this. But usually my video are recorded with this one, but now I decided to make some kind of experiment in which this time I decided to record it on my smartphone. So consider this a little bit of an experimental vlog, testing how if I feel satisfied on making future recordings with my smartphone. But anyway, that's not gonna impede my talk about the latest entry of course the franchise, the Batman. And by the way, do not confuse it with the animated series that is also called The Batman. This is another take on our eponymous Dark Knight. Okay, let's make it count. We got Adam West. He had that, that movie, the movie that it had bombed. I struggle with the name. We got the Tim Burton movies. We got the Christopher Nolan movies. The Zack Snyder movies, and this one. By the way, I'm counting the live action ones just in case. The ones that are notorious. Usually, I know there might be some hidden ones, but I'm mostly counting kind of like the most mainstream. This is kind of, let's say that there are 5 mainstream incarnations of the of this one, and man, that they really love to hammer this one. And honestly, I won't mind because they are trying different tastes, different approaches, and each Batman they kind of try to make it fit to the time period that they're going through. And by the way, this movie, The Batman, I was actually kind of crossing my fingers because I've been hearing a lot about the production about this film. And for one thing, I was kind of like, please don't come. Why? Because I was dreading that this movie was gonna be part of the Snyderverse, and I didn't want that. I am one of those people who I think Zack Snyder's DC approach is very overrated. I don't like how it started. I don't like how a lot of those movies. And while I do agree that some of those movies then progressively got a little bit better, still I think that the damage was done, and it feels kind of like irreversible at that moment. And I did mention my thoughts on of course Justice League. I'll repeat it again. The Justice League had this problematic history on its production that, of course, Josh Whedon did it. It was a total mess. And of course, last year we got the Zack Snyder's Justice League, in which I did say that, well, it is a better product, I still think that is not a good product. It's still if I could call it a movie, I would call it a bad movie or a bad miniseries. But either way, still I gave it credit that that the production is much better than what happened. So either way, I was technically crossing my fingers, but little by little, I still got curious, and I feel like I have to still watch it because because again, it's Batman, and I love Batman. So I finally got there with a semi-crowded theater that I went through, and I have good news, guys. For one, I'm glad that this movie is separate from the Snyderverse universe that they were hammering it up, and I didn't want it to hammer it up. Now this one feels kind of like its own thing, kind of like they did with Joker. And the second good news that I have to tell you is that I came out loving this film. I really, really like it. It's one of those Batman movies that I'm glad that they took some different approach into it. Is dark, it's gritty, but most important, somehow it feels less than a superhero movie. Well, hero movie. Sorry, Batman is not a superhero. It's less than one of those mass crusader movies, but more like a detective movie noir, in which honestly Batman is apart from being the Cape Crusader, he's always best known for being a detective. I mean, he debuted on the detective comics, so it kind of is fitting that they decided to take an approach that it's not exactly an action film. Well, it has its action, but the heart is detective side, and man that it got me. And by the way, yes, I could say, I know that people might be intimidated by the 2 hours 45 minutes long run of this film, but either way, I wasn't bored. It's weird. What was it? What was the last movie? The last long movie that I just saw. It did felt very long, but not this one. This one I felt so hooked that I didn't even care that the movie was going long. I was so thrilled. So basically, yeah, I came out really, really loving this Batman movie, and I will actually say that is probably one of the best, at least from this one of these year's best movies that I have seen. Okay, this is March. We still have some more other movies that is gonna probably top it. But oh my god, how can I explain? So I better start deconstructing why I came out really liking this movie. First of all, don't worry, it's not exactly the rinse and repeat story that is saying that okay, here's the origin story. Bruce Wayne lost his family and so on. Apparently, the movie actually knows that we know the basics of Batman, even though it still kind of explores some familiar themes that we all know from the mythos. And so, but still, bringing it on kind of like in the big screen and being kind of like it's a different incarnation is fine. In this case, we got that Batman, Commissioner Gordon, and of course, Selina Kyle / Catwoman. They get involved in a series of murders to all these bigwigs, in which the culprit is none other than the Riddler. The Riddler is also one of Batman's most eponymous villains, next to the Joker. And well, let's say that not only they have to solve this murder mystery, but in trying to catch up the Riddler. But the more they go deep down, the investigation, they find out that there is something much more sinister as well as very shady stuff that is going on, and all it also, and without saying so much, let's say that it hides some dark truth within the Wayne with the Wayne family. That's all I'm gonna tell you about most of the plot of the movie, because everything else is, just like I tell you with many detective stories, that the best way is to try to see how they try to solve it. They find the mystery, and it's a good thing that they kind of chose the Riddler for it, because enemies like the Joker, I don't think that it could be something that could go into the. Yeah, sorry about that. My computer sometimes it crashed sometimes. Yeah, sorry, but. Sorry a little bit for the cut. Is that as you saw, my computer crashed, and I needed to have at least next to me the names of the actors when I have to mention them, because I'm not very good at names, and well, it kind of needed to restart and all these things. But anyway, yeah, I was talking about. Well, kind of like the story that, yeah, it is a detective story, and it has its actions, of course, and there's investigations, there's some twists here and there, and it has all the things that you need to go with it. And yeah, I was gonna go about the actors. Let's talk about the guy playing Bruce Wayne, who is played by Robert Pattinson. This is one of those Batman movies in which you see him mostly on his costume, and we see a little bit less of his philanthropist side. Without the mask and all those things. Kind of like the Lego Batman movie. Maybe I should, you know what, now that I think about it, I should have counted the Lego Batman movie into the mainstream Batman movies. I mean, sorry about that, Lego Batman. But anyway, he's played by Robert Pattinson. Again, one thing that I gotta say is that, for one thing, I'm glad that he decided to make kind of like a more mild approach to Batman. Not exactly the best, and but I'm glad that he, unlike Christian Bale and what was it, Ben Affleck, Ben Affleck, yeah. Unlike these two, he actually drop using, the raspy voice. He doesn't use the, I am the terror that flaps in the night. Okay, that's a Darwin Duck thing, but you get the idea. It doesn't use the raspy voice to bring terror to others. No, this one, this time he's still intimidating. But one thing that I do have to let you notice is that this Batman, more than brooding and menacing, he's kind of like more, well, for lack of better words, emo. Yeah, this is a little bit kind of like an emo, sad, downtrodden Batman who is kind of seeing the dark, everything so dark and sad and all these things. Although this is because it kind of fits the ambience of this Gotham City, which I'll get to that. But I will say that the times in which we see Bruce Wayne, without the costume, my God, the hair is really, really emo. And it doesn't help that there's some moments in which you see that he has some mascara that he uses, to cover more his face and from the mask and all these things, but with the hair, all down and all these things, he kind of looks like the evil Peter Parker from Spider-Man 3. And honestly, at least that fits better than Spider-Man 3. So that's one thing. We also have Zoe Kravitz. She plays Celine. Selena Kyle, Catwoman, and honestly, she's really good. She's not over the top of Michelle Pfeiffer, and of course, not as forgettable as the other ones, including, well, Halle Berry's not. It wasn't forgettable. It was pretty bad. And the other ones, of course, was kind of forgettable. I kind of even don't remember the name of the woman who played Catwoman in The Dark Knight Rises. And sorry if I also forgot the names of all the actresses who played Catwoman in the Adam West ones. But either way, she played indeed one of the best Catwomans in cinema, and I like some of the story beats that they gave her to make the story a little bit more personal. So basically, she's kind of like one of the most developed characters in this one. We also have Jeffrey Wright. He plays according to IMDb, Lithuanian James Gordon. I know that I said Commissioner Gordon, but I'm very used to call it Commissioner Gordon. We got Andy Serkis, who plays Alfred. I did mention that the Riddler is on this movie. I didn't also mention that they also jam in Colin Farrell as the Penguin. Yes, the Penguin is there. It's not exactly, the caricature that you kind of imagine, like the long nose or the monocle or anything. He's more like a gangster. He does have some. The makeup did make him have some, qualities that kind of make him look like he came out from The Sopranos or something like that. And well, he's not as caricaturesque as like his base form, or as a freak from like the Batman Returns. But he really does work well. And speaking of acting, I didn't also mention, of course, Paul Dano as the Riddler himself. For the most of the movie, he has, in his costume. And if I have to nitpick something about this movie, is the choice of the Riddler's costume. I mean, at least it's not as bombastic as Jim Carrey's in Batman Forever. But, man, I don't know. I know that they wanted to make him kind of like modern menacing or something like that made him kind of look like a modern terrorist. But for some reason, I know some people that they are not very fond of him looking like, like a gimp with glasses. As much as you have some questions about the costume of the Riddler, at least he makes it up 100% by making this guy downright creepy. I am serious. The Riddler, this version of the Riddler is probably one of the most disturbing incarnations that they made him. It's kind of like this actor actually did study what made Heath Ledger and Joaquin Phoenix creepy, and adopted it into the Riddler's persona, and it works. Although most of the time the Riddler is shown, in these videos, and my God, those videos, they are kind of like, the disturbing videos from the Saw series. And he even talked he's basically the guy who really takes the mantle of Jigsaw. And all these videos and the way he kind of taunts Batman and showing his crimes and how he relishes out of it and taunting them it's effectively disturbing. I really, the more I saw this guy, it really creeped me out. And man, and I know that maybe it could have make him a little bit more sophisticated, so it could not have it could separate himself from the Joker. But either way, I still take it. I take that this is one of the better performances of the Riddler, at least in live action. I know that there's one from a TV series. I haven't seen much of them. Yeah, it's kind of seeing that. I kind of wish I could see kind of like a more sophisticated version of of that villain. So that's pretty much all I have to talk about the mostly the main characters. Yeah, and also I do want to tell you that yeah, the Riddler is killing people and of course leaving the clues, kind of like the Zodiac Killer. Well, basically that's the point of the Riddler, and I can see that the Zodiac Killer was kind of like the inspiration. The cinematography, I'll say that it works well. I'll say it's not there's not no heavy editing or chops like they did on the Christopher Nolan's, which thank goodness, because sometimes you get these action scenes that are too close to the camera, it gets really annoying. This one doesn't do that. It's really well shot. Although a lot of the shot is kind of like really really dark, and most of the movie takes place at night. Well, that's technically Gotham City, which kind of showcase almost during the whole movie, in which it shows that Gotham City is basically kind of like it's always kind of been kind of like one of the worst places to live. I mean, and it's either you are a millionaire with shady businesses, or you are a downright criminal going around killing people or making other people miserable. But always, this is a city that actually needs kind of like something that can go between these two parameters, which is of course Batman and from a certain degree Catwoman. So speaking about also the cinematography, I do want to say that it does have one of the best soundtracks of this year. There are times in which the kind of not the recognizable '90s theme music that we know from the Tim Burton Batman, but it has its own that it'll stick to you for a while. I kind of forgot it now at the moment, but it's mostly because I got distracted with other things. Mostly because I think I got it here. I got Neo: The World Ends With You from the library. So and you know that this game has really bombastic music, so much that the music from this one kind of overshadows the one from the movie that I just saw. So yeah, the soundtrack is really good. What else? What other I have to say? There is a Batmobile, of course, and honestly, it's probably one of the better designs of the Batmobile there is. It kind of looks like it kind of looks like a go-kart, in my opinion. Well, as big as a go-kart can get. So that one I have technically not much of a problem with it. Like usual, as much as I want to share how much I really, really love this movie, I have to play fair game, and because not everything should be, oh, this is the best movie ever, or something like that. I always try to find kind of something to nitpick, or kind of like something kind of like let's say some negative, in order to not overhype anything. I never was kind of like the kind of guy who really likes to overhype something that looks so good, because otherwise it will be dishonest, and I prefer an honest kind of like an honest mistake than than kind of like a vanity project in this one. So first of all, like I did mention, it's pretty intimidating to know that this movie is 2 hours 43 minutes in total, kind of ranging from 3 hours. So the best. So mostly, most people also will kind of be taken back that this movie is gonna be kind of like a little bit slow, but you're gonna notice that this is not exactly the typical Batman movie that treats itself like well, for lack of better terms, a superhero movie in which it isn't. This one they wanted to take the approach of what he was supposed to be in the originally, which is of course a detective story, and that's where the heart of the entertainment goes to. It's just doing police work, finding who is who, and well, not who is who, mainly where to catch this, where to get this criminal. But of course, the more layers they get into it, some real shady stuff begins to see. Like for example, I forgot to mention that the biggest scene of this one is of course Gotham City is technically kind of like in a very bad situation. Batman do what he does, but sometimes it's almost like, well, is it worth it or something like that? So that's technically the biggest interest that I kind of recommend you to, if you want to get some entertainment out of it. In my case, I was so into it because it is at least some of the kind of like the most exciting moment, and the action is well even out and well situated to the point that it keeps you interested. Things happen well enough in order to keep your attention. Sometimes you see them, solving something, and then bam, enemies appear, or they try to force an interrogation to, like say for example the Penguin, or some of the other bad guys that appear, or sometimes the Riddler appear. That's what keeps you that keeps you interested. Another thing, of course, this is mostly a nitpick. I did mention that there is not exactly kind of like enough Bruce Wayne. Some people say confident that he's kind of like a little bit moody. I saw kind of like one reviewer kind of saying that Bruce Wayne and Batman they don't mesh, because they're both acting kind of like the same, instead of they kind of like masquerading, like Bruce Wayne, the charming millionaire playboy, and Batman, the dark brooding vigilante. Yeah, these are some things that actually kind of clash. And of course, let me tell you that the biggest negative that I can give with this movie, as far as negative go with this movie. Sorry, just a little bit of water. Okay. The biggest negative I can give to this movie is, of course, the bane of every single movie that has great potential. And that is the rating. PG-13. Why? Because, well, children love Batman. Children knows Batman. But of course, Hollywood knows that, but at the same time doesn't know that. Because, I mean, I've seen children that they even read The Killing Joke. But in this case of the movie, well, you can tell that this is one of those movies that it does try to become R-rated. I mean, the Joker movie was R-rated, and look at the violent things that. Remember that I did say that this movie kind of shows Gotham City almost like a worse place to go and all these things. Well, I think Joker did better in showcasing how much of a shithole Gotham City is. And in this one it shows, but I think that they could that it wanted to go to the extreme, but because of corporation, they couldn't. And although I'm not saying that sometimes you have to be bloody or gory to become a good movie. Because at least for the credit of this movie, at least it's some disturbing moments. It kind of is still intact, but it kind of makes you wonder if they could have let it all out a little bit more. It could be even kind of like. It'll make you even more scared of the Riddler, because the way the Riddler makes his killings, as well as doing all his stuff, is disturbing. And it shows that this is something that a guy that you should not mess up. And man, that kind of makes you question if what will have happened. This movie went R-rated, and it's so PG-13 also that this movie also has a little bit of bounds of illogical stuff. Like, for example, I think there are 2 occasions in which people get blown up by a fire in close range, and they just don't exactly burn into a crisp. Although that, I'm kind of a little bit forgiving, because I'm an anime fan, and anime. There are many times that people in anime, they just get too close to explosions, and they just get hurt badly, and not their face melt or something like that. And yeah, another thing that now that I remember, is a little bit of a nitpick. How come sometimes when people try to shoot Batman, they always goes for the chest instead of his face, which is mostly the part that he's not protected. I kind of also most of the shooters from that one maybe took lessons from that Netflix Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, in which everybody shoots Leatherface in the body instead of the head. But anyway, that's just only kind of like nitpicks that I do want to say. It doesn't harm exactly the movie, but because, again, the Batman, I just came out loving it. And it's, again, one of the best Batman movies I've seen. Don't get too intimidated by the 2 hours and 43 or 45 minutes. At least it's a better sit than Zack Snyder's Justice League. Sorry, I know that there are many people who love it, but I'm not very fond of it, and I'm not very fond of sitting 4 hours of almost nothing, too much build-up, and I know that it kind of pays off, but I'm not a fan of the Justice League. Okay. Do I recommend the Batman? Hell yeah! It was a great movie for me. I'm really glad that I saw this movie. And yeah, we've seen many of those Batman movies. We know by heart, the whole thing. But every creator deserves a shot to create their own world of Batman, because he's still. No matter how many movies you make, and how many comics they make about the world of Batman, he's still fascinating, and it gets fans. It gets fans from old generations and new generations, and no matter how greedy or no matter how greedy or goofy or cartoonish or epic or video gamey or animated you get with him, the Batman is always a hero. The Batman will always be there for us, and he's always interesting. He's always fun to revisit, at least for me. This is why, man, that makes me question, how come it's that Batman is the one that gets the better movies than the other DC superhero movies? Why can't Superman have one? I'll tell you why. Because Superman is not the Batman.